I know. All right. So we're going live now. Hi, everybody. Uh, I'm Todd, and this is Doug, and we have books out this week, and we really hope that you're joining us, you're watching, you can hear us. Those of you in the chat, do me a favor and just let me know if you can hear me. Doug, say something.
Hey there, can you hear me? Good to see you, Todd.
Good to see you too, man. So, just bear with me 1 second. Got all this stuff open in front of me and it's very distracting. So yep. Mary Hart says hi. Nikki Nelson Hicks says hey.
Hey
Char
there.
Cochran says hey.
I know all those ladies.
Yes, I do too. Thanks for joining us, ladies. And Josh Marcella.
All right. Hey, Josh. Hey.
So, yeah, this is going to be a pretty informal thing. As I kind of said when I started this thing, so my pal Doug Wynne here has a brand new book out. It's called His Own Devices. I'll just show that pretty thing. I love that cover.
Thanks, man. And you have a new book out.
I
Well,
do have a new
not
book
exactly
out.
a new, but it's a new release.
It's a new release.
A Life Transparent.
Yep. It's this is my not for resale copy. It's the only one I have. Let me get some light on it here. There we go.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. So
another very nice cover.
Thank you. So yeah, we thought my book re-released on Tuesday, his book released today, so we thought why not do a dual launch party here.
Yeah,
So
why not team up? I mean, if we're just going to be, sitting around in our pajamas anyway on a Thursday night, wishing we were at a bookstore, might as well do it together.
Right? God, I miss being able to go to events like this in person.
Me
I don't
too.
know. It's just the whole personal aspect of it. I kind of equate it to like seeing a band in a small club.
Yeah.
There's more of that intimacy between the artist and the viewer. And what I'm trying to say is I want to get intimate with you folks.
All right, Todd. Well, you got the sexy beard. I was thinking today that between the two of us, you with the beard and my hair, combined, we could probably get cast in a Peter Jackson movie. But we could go full wizard. I can't rock the beard quite like that, but
well, I actually trimmed mine today, so it would be a little bit less wild. But yeah, you're right. I mean, a couple more months and I'll be full Gandalf again.
Cool.
So
yeah, the bookstores, I miss just being with people when a book comes out, because so much of this process is done alone in the room that we're both, each of us is probably in our writing room right now, right?
Yeah,
you're a little dark there, but
my lair.
Yeah, so you like to come out of the lair once, a year at least, and share the stories, tell the stories to actual humans, and make some contact with people who are buying the books.
Yeah.
So it's more lonely this year, but we're really grateful for you guys turning up to listen to us read tonight.
Yes.
And talk with each other about these stories.
So,
I think these books have a little bit of a similar energy to each other in some ways.
A little bit, I think so. I can definitely see they kind of tread the same waters. I think just in different ways.
They're both a little ambiguous.
Yeah.
It kind of. I think they're both the kinds of books that lead you in with a certain amount of trepidation and uncertainty about what exactly is really going on for these characters.
Definitely. Now, just real quick for the viewers. So the way this is gonna happen is Doug and I are gonna riff about our books with each other. We're gonna ask some questions. After that, he's gonna read. I'm gonna read, and from then we will take some questions from the audience. So really appreciate you guys spending your Thursday evening with us. All right, Doug, take it away.
All right, you know what? I'm gonna just I'm gonna try to impose a little structure. I love this being a conversation,
That's
and
fine.
it'll go where it goes. But I did write down a few questions I wanted to ask you, and we'll just see how that evolves. So, A Life Transparent was your first novel, right?
Correct.
And now, several books later, you're reissuing it with Bloodshot Books,
Hmm.
and it's the first in a trilogy. Correct me if I'm
That
wrong.
is
Called
correct.
the Monochrome trilogy.
Yes.
So I guess my first question for you is when you when you wrote A Life Transparent, did you know that it was going to be a trilogy, or did that evolve over time with the stories?
Oh, hitting me with the hard questions.
You don't know that?
Okay, so A Life Transparent began as a standalone book. Hell, I didn't know it was going to be a book when I started writing it. I still have the notepad where I wrote down the initial idea, and I had a little note to myself that it would probably be 2,000 words, probably less. Uh, so no, it became a short novel. I think it's like maybe like 10K above a novella length book, and it was meant to be a one off. And I guess it was about, God, 2 years later, is when I had another idea for these characters, like a new story, and that became the sequel. And by the end of the sequel, I realized, with the help of my editor's guidance, basically she told me it's a trilogy, and I need to accept that. So
Cool. It's funny how that can come from outside sometimes. You don't see the possibilities until someone says, I can imagine more from that character.
yeah, it there was a I was too close to it at the time to really see that, and I was so tired of working in that sandbox that I wanted something new. Uh, so yeah, this re-release is was an opportunity to revise the first and second books to smooth it out and make it a bit more fluid as a trilogy, as an actual trilogy, as opposed to being just, oh, here's this first book, I wrote a sequel, and now it gets a sequel, and none of this shit makes sense. I mean, it still doesn't make sense, but you know.
We were talking about one of our favorite shared writers the other night, Clive Barker, who has left us hanging for how many decades on
Ugh,
the books of the art, right? We're still waiting for the third book.
it's
I'm a
like
huge
30
Clive Barker
years on
fan.
the art.
It just
We're coming up
really,
on year
and then
30 for that one.
right, and he almost died. He had a dental
Yeah.
infection that got scary. Um, and then the Abarat books that I'm reading to my son, um, those I think are up to book three, and that's also left hanging. There's supposed to be maybe five. So stay in good health, Clive.
Yes, please,
It's been a big
Clive.
influence on me.
We need your work. We need more of
So
your work.
you're not doing too bad wrapping up your trilogy in record time compared to that.
After the trilogy's out, I'm just gonna vanish in a puff of smoke, and you'll never hear from me again.
So is the third book written? Is it complete?
The third book is written. It's about 86,000 words currently. It's with my editor. It's slated for release probably late September of this year.
Cool.
Um, yeah, that took me 8 years before I really got a handle on it. So, uh,
So
yeah,
one thing I wondered about that is obviously you've written other books and many stories since this first novel, and now you're continuing and concluding the story that you started back then as your first outing. How has your writing, I mean, this is a big question and too big to probably fully answer, but
okay.
just to touch on, um, looking back at it, revisiting your first novel, um, are there themes in there that have continued throughout your other work that were present right at the beginning, and have do you feel that your style has evolved or changed since writing this book?
Uh, there has been some thematic elements that's persisted. Just the concept of identity and knowing who you are, versus who you want to be. That's always kind of been something that always keeps popping up from here or there. I mean, it manifests in different ways in across, my body of work, but it's there. Don't know if I'll ever be able to shake that really because existential dread is kind of my jam. So,
Cool.
uh,
Well, that
style
also,
wise, sorry, go ahead.
no.
Uh,
You're getting to the second part of my question. Sorry.
Okay, so style wise, absolutely, I've changed. I mean, I was 23 years old when I wrote the first draft of A Life Transparent. I'm gonna be 38 in a month. Uh, I've been writing that whole time, so it's only natural. You're going to evolve. I mean, I feel like, you grow as a writer as you grow as a person. It's because it's primarily based on perspective. It's how you see the world, and you learn how to translate that better as you go along. Um, my
Well
work
said.
is a lot more visceral. It's a lot more in your face, I think. Not really extreme per se. I don't consider myself an extreme horror guy. But I have the capability of going there when I need to.
Mhm.
Um,
More
when I
tools in the
was,
toolbox these days.
yeah, and when I was starting out, I was kind of afraid to go there. Hadn't really figured out what that would do to me when I went there, and
Okay.
uh, because you always have the doubts and everything. Yeah, it's
Well, for a
part of the
first
process.
novel, especially, I think
Yeah. Uh, so
it is a sort of understated kind of horror, but I found it really creepy. There's some imagery even early in the book when your
thank you.
character Donovan starts having these experiences. He's not sure what's happening to him, and maybe just to set it up for people, uh, you might want to enhance this, but
Sure.
without spoiling anything, Donovan is this guy who's at a place in his life where he's kind of in a rut, and he's working this probably dead end sales job. People in his life, like his brother, feel like he's maybe not living up to his potential. He wanted to be a writer. He's sort of toiling away at a novel that there's not much hope that he's going anywhere with it.
Yeah.
And then he starts to visibly disappear. He starts to become invisible to the people in his life, and he starts to see these creatures, really creepy creatures, just in the corner of a room, moaning at him. And so the guy starts to wonder if he's going insane. I feel like as a philosophical horror novel, there's a lot in this that seems symbolic. And not to psychoanalyze you, my friend, but
That's fine.
it's a first novel, and I know from experience that in a first novel you often are going to grapple with some of the themes you've been carrying around for a while in your life that you've got some shit to say about. So is I guess I'll just get right to it and make you uncomfortable. How much of Donovan is autobiographical, possibly, or not at all?
Uh,
And he is a writer
he is
trying
a
to,
writer. Yeah, I
get
broke
started.
that. I broke that rule with the first book. My cat keeps moving my mouse. I apologize if we keep fading in and out. When the cat moves the mouse, it you know changes the You asshole! You keep doing that.
My son's cat's doing the same thing
Okay.
next door.
Um. Sorry. Your question again. My cat's just driving me crazy.
Okay, so you've got a first novel with a main character who
Yes.
is an aspiring writer, and he's dealing with some of the frustrations of a job that is maybe unfulfilling. I'm wondering if some of this was drawn from experience.
Yeah. Absolutely. I would say I'm probably about 99% Donovan Candle. Um, there's a lot of personal stuff in the book and the subsequent books that you know people who don't know me would never see. But it's coming from pretty I guess the word I'm looking for. Sorry, this cat is driving me crazy. Um, it comes from a very like timid place, very tender place. A lot of it. a lot of what you're seeing in terms of like the what's happening to Donovan, what poses a threat to him, you know, physically and metaphysically. Uh, a lot of that are, literary manifestations of, a lot that's, going on up here and in here. That's my heart, Todd, not the other side. Jesus. uh
Well, that's where the best stories come from, I think.
yeah,
The stuff
yeah,
that's personal, that you have something authentic to talk about, and you give it to a character to experience in a heightened way.
definitely. Um the thing is that it took me a long time to come to terms with that. Uh just because I whenever I guess Life Transparent was originally published, in the greater cataloging systems in 2007. So whenever people would, ask me about, have you written any books? I'd be like, yeah, it's this, it's this weird thing. It doesn't really fit anywhere. So if you read it, I'm sorry.
Real confidence there.
Oh, absolutely. And
Quite the sales pitch.
yeah, and that's that was Donovan then. That was, he's not this confident figure. And for him to be thrust into this extraordinary situation and have it be about, what he's lacking as a person, very much reflective of where I was at the time. I worked in a law firm making like $9 an hour. Hated it. People treated me like garbage there. All the attorneys think they're first in line, that sort of thing. And one day I went to work and no one said a word to me all day. Like I was, wasn't recognized. My presence wasn't recognized. I was just literally a cog in that machine. And that's the day I wrote down, I'm living a life transparent.
Story was born.
Yeah, and that's where it came from.
Cool. Now, Donovan, I'm sure, is in a different place by the time you get to book three, and you certainly are. You've got a
Yes.
lot more experience now. You were just nominated for the Bram Stoker Award for your last novel, Devil's Creek.
Thank,
Congratulations, man. That is a
thank you.
beautiful book.
I
Um,
just cast my vote for the final ballot. I wish everyone the best of luck.
cool.
That's tough. That's a
That's just,
tough ballot, man.
yeah, some really fantastic books came out in the past year. You're
Yeah,
in very good company.
it was a great year for
I
horror.
wish you a lot of luck with that.
Thank you.
But now you return to this series with a lot more experience. And you were telling me the other night you're doing it with Bloodshot Books, small press run by Pete Kale,
Yep.
a man that we all have a lot of love and respect for, hardworking publisher. But you said one of the reasons you wanted to do it with Bloodshot was to have a lot of creative control over the process. And one thing I think we both have in common on these new books is we both designed our own cover art. So
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, what's the process like, or what was this process like for you designing the new cover?
Well, I mean, I told Pete when I approached him about this whole project that I I basically wanted to do all the design work for it. I wanted to design the entire book front to back. Um, I didn't want it to look like other books. Um, I kind of wanted it to stand out because to me, I mean, it's a special thing to me personally as I'm kind of closing off this chapter of my life and I could finally move on without any guilt of not finishing it. Because there are readers out there who have guilted me for years for not finishing it. Uh, so Pete was amenable to that. He handled all the public publishing stuff except for the design. He let me have free reign, which I'm grateful for. And I was able to, just to show you guys a little bit. I don't know if this will. Yeah. So all the pages had this is kind of like a design that my wife made,
Cool.
kind of representing this monochrome-esque, like if this were to be like, if you were looking at this say in the 1950s or 60s, like how would they represent this visually, you'd have this very much inspired by the poster for Vertigo by Hitchcock.
Right. Cool.
And you see that pattern all throughout. Um, and designing the covers, I wanted to give it more of a cohesive identity because book 1 and book 2 had vastly different covers, which didn't help the whole series aspect and everything. Again, wasn't really that planned. And, at the time, I just wanted a cool cover for book 2. It wasn't about, I wasn't experienced enough as a designer really to recognize that, there needs to be like cohesiveness to the way it's designed. So, same font, same styling, same kind of color theme, a little bit. Book 2 varies a little bit color wise, but yeah, the whole process was fun. It's very, very tiring. I'll never do this again.
It does take a lot of time away from writing to
It did, yeah.
roll up your sleeves and do that kind of
It
work.
still is, actually. I mean, after I've got the interior done for book 2, but I still have to create the ebook, and I still have to redesign, well, design book 3 essentially. I mean, the covers are done, but everything else has to be done from scratch.
It's cool that it will all have a cohesive
Yeah.
style to it and look good next to each other on the shelf. when you're done.
Yeah, I designed it with that in mind, so I hope it pans out and Amazon's printers are amenable. So,
Hope for the best.
I should ask you some questions
Sure.
because I've done most of the talking and I'm not comfortable with that. So, I wrote.
See what I did there?
Yeah, I see what you did there.
Take control and then don't have to be in the spotlight.
So, you came to me. I'm trying to remember now. I asked you for an arc, a digital arc of His Own Devices last year sometime, I think, or maybe the year before that.
I think farther back than that. It's been a long road.
Yeah. And you sent it to me, and it kept getting pushed down in my inbox further and further and further. Finally, you approached me again about blurbing it, and I'm like, yeah, send that over.
It had changed a lot
Yeah.
actually, by then. I'm glad you hadn't read the earlier version.
Oh, I'm actually going to write that down to come back to what changed. But first, so His Own Devices, and I apologize, it has been a few months. I'm probably not going to remember the character names.
I can help.
The whole premise is you have this mother whose husband is stationed in Afghanistan.
Right, Jessica.
Yes, and her son is really into Minecraft and watching his favorite YouTube streamers who play Minecraft.
Right.
That's a huge thing for folks who aren't in the know in the gaming world. So the son begins to see something in Minecraft. It's like a pixel, right? It's like a pixel or a block that doesn't belong there.
Right.
And as the story unfolds, I mean, this book goes places. I mean, it really looks into the whole side of Twitch streaming and streaming to YouTube, the people who are playing these games that mostly small children watch. It explores that. You can see the dangers there. But it also takes a nice occult twist. And
I can't help myself. I try to write a techno thriller, and it still ends up being an occult horror story.
Oh no! I mean, dude. I mean, if you look at the the whole gamut of human history, it's the occult's always there. It just depends on who's calling it the occult. But anyway, I digress.
Secrets. I mean, the word just means secret. Right?
Yeah.
Occult.
Hidden.
Means hidden. So to me, that's just the essence of a good suspense story. What's hidden, and how will it be revealed?
And the pacing of it is lightning quick. Like, I went through that book in no time, and I'm a slow reader. I'm a really slow reader. So Fortunately, you gave me some time before you needed the blurb.
Right.
But no, I mean it that the book moves fast, and I don't want to give any more away
Sure.
because like I could talk about the YouTuber and stuff, but I don't want to. Although I will say that the reptile in the background on Doug's video
Oh,
has
right.
something to do with it.
Right.
That's
Lime,
fucking awesome, dude.
Lime the lizard here. This
Yeah.
is my friend Glenn is a computer genius and had a career as a programmer. Now he lives on a farm and builds whatever geek contraptions fire his imagination. And I went to him when I had questions about the technology problems in the plot.
Hmm.
Could somebody do this? How would they do it if they could? What would be a believable? Can I even use this in a book? Or people who understand tech gonna call me out for bullshit. And he came up with some brilliant solutions to the exact kinds of things I needed to set up and have confront my characters. So without spoiling much of it, and I do think on my own website in maybe a few weeks when people have had some time to read the book, I'll probably do a video about this lizard here, uh, where I can drop some spoilers, and I'll warn you that I'm going to. But there, the YouTuber in the book, Rainbow Dave, he's this superstar on YouTube for the gaming community. And these days, people like gaming, watching people play video games apparently is going to become some kind of like professional sports league at this point. These people are making huge money to huge
Absolutely.
audiences who just want to watch them play video games. This guy is catering to the young Minecraft audience that are exploring the open shared world of this fantasy game. And then a shadowy organization starts to mess with his mind and sort of brainwash him and program him and groom him for something. Um, at some point, he builds these gaming figurines, and maybe some of you who have young kids have encountered this kind of thing where you buy a plastic figurine. It looks like a little action figure toy or whatever, but
The
it has a chip in
amiibo.
it.
Yeah,
Has
the
a chip
amiibo.
inside
Yeah.
it that communicates with the game system. It typically adds a character to the game. So Rainbow Dave, the YouTuber, creates these lizard figurines based on his own pet lizard, Lime. He has a lizard named Lime, a cat named Lemon, and those are also celebrities to the kids who watch his lifestyle videos. So Lime is a very dangerous little toy to be distributing to children. We'll leave it
Indeed.
at that. But my friend Glenn, who gave me some of these tech ideas as a gift when the book came out, he had in all of the long time I spent trying to revise the book and pitch the book and publish the book, he had built this version of Lime the Lizard with actual computer chips in it. You can see his eyes are flashing.
Yeah.
He does some interesting things. He executes some of the things safely that are in the book. So it's a bit of a
Oh
mashup.
wow. I
This
thought it
this
was just like a figure, but
Right. No, this is actually like a book prop. And I like to collect like, movie replica props and
yeah.
stuff. It's a little hobby that actually Dave in the book also shares. But this is a book prop that does some of the amazing and weird and mischievous tech things that are in the book. So I was just blown away when this showed up in the mail earlier this week to
That's
celebrate
awesome.
the publication. Yeah. So
Wow.
thank you, Glenn, if you ever see this.
What a great gift though. Just,
Yeah.
that's really kind that he did that. I do have to ask, does it plug in by USB? Because I see a little cable there.
Yeah. It's, I think, a USB-C connection,
Okay. And
mini.
do you plug it in its butt?
Yeah, yeah, right. You shove the cable up its ass, and its eyes flash. Uh, Very exciting. He also has a button on his tongue. His tongue is actually a button that I can't talk about, and I definitely can't press during this video, or it's game over. So
Wow.
anyway, read the book, and we'll talk more about that.
Uh so my first thing I wanted to ask you about the book, and this is more for my own curiosity than everybody watching. I want to know, like, so what where was the germ for this story idea? Like, where did this start?
um, it definitely came out of my own kid, being a digital native, growing up with, I think they come out of the womb with an iPad now. and you have to upgrade the software. You do the updates, after the
Uh-huh.
first breastfeeding these days. But he, he from a young age was interested, and he's an only child, and really smart kid. He's been having philosophical conversations with his parents, since he was little. But
That's
I think
awesome.
a lot of their social lives, even before the pandemic these days, a lot of a young person's social life happens, uh, you know, through the devices. Hopefully with oftentimes friends from the real world, which is his situation. They're always gaming together and video chatting together. So I started to see some of these personalities that he would tune into on YouTube. And I think, honestly, most of these guys seem like, even if they're not great influences, I don't consider them harmful influences typically. I think it's pretty much a wholesome kind of culture, the Minecraft part of it anyway. But it did occur to me that, you've got these like maybe, teens or 20 somethings who have an audience of millions of kids. And most of the time, the parents are happy that the kid is engaged with the iPad and, they can get some work done or some, some do the dishes or something, while the kid has something to watch. But it can be this full-time occupation of just constantly taking in the conversation of this random person somewhere in the world who's cultivated an audience and who maybe is charismatic. And of course, as a thriller writer and horror writer, my mind always goes to the most paranoid worst case scenarios. How could somebody abuse that? How could somebody manipulate that? I think most of us are aware of the commercial forces that like to get a little leverage in those kinds of spaces. But what if something more nefarious wanted to take advantage of that relationship? So that was really the seed for the book for me, without saying too much more about it. I thought it might be a short story at first. And then I started thinking, what if one of these guys, gave the kids a project? Because Minecraft is about crafting, it's about building things and
Right.
get all the right ingredients to build the thing in the game virtually. And I thought, what if you wanted them to craft something in the real world? Do they have chemistry sets that they got for Christmas somewhere? Do they have, what if a YouTuber started sending a kid around the house on a scavenger hunt? Can you get some of these volatile chemicals? Maybe uh, what what might we do for entertainment while we're minimally supervised? And again, to not spoil anything, I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Was Rainbow Dave based on any particular YouTuber?
I should be careful here. I think I've already mentioned in one interview. I took my son to see a live YouTuber event in Boston some years ago now. While I was working on the book, he was obsessed with Dan TDM, who is, or at the time was, one of the big Minecraft YouTubers. Very charismatic guy. He's got like blue hair. He's in the UK. He's, some of his videos are about his life, and some of them, most of them are about the game. But very animated character. So he certainly influenced Rainbow Dave. And I think I should say, for the legal disclaimer, for the lawyers, I think Dan TDM seems like a lovely young man and is probably not, a psychopath. But yeah, seeing a whole theater filled with kids who were anticipating this performance, that wasn't like anything I grew up with. Wasn't a rock and roll show. Whole other culture. So yeah, that was an influence for sure.
Interesting. That actually was going to be one of my questions. Like, have you ever been to an event like that? So in the book, it comes across that there's some details that were pretty in depth. So
Yeah, my kid was really my main source
okay,
of research. You got to write what you know, and when
absolutely.
you're trapped in a house with these YouTubers yammering away in the background for endless hours, it finds its way in.
Yeah, and yeah, that kind of answers my next question about how much research into the streaming world did you actually do? But I guess if your son was big into it, you really didn't have a choice.
Right, you
Yeah,
can't help absorbing whatever they're into.
yeah. My stepson, when he was younger, he was all about Minecraft. I mean, it's my fault he was into Minecraft because I was into Minecraft because I'm a gamer too.
Cool.
Actually I spent a good chunk of quarantine last year playing Minecraft. That's how I coped because I actually had control over something.
It's very relaxing. I
Yeah.
don't play, but I can see the music is really trance-like, very soothing.
Mm-hmm.
I could see how you get in the zone with that game, and that was part of what attracted me also. And the book, I should say, isn't really about Minecraft through and
Mm-mm.
through. It starts there. That's sort of the impetus for some things that affect the characters and bring them together. Beyond that, it goes off into a different, an original video game that's fictional for the book,
Yeah.
and it's not like the book takes place in a video game either. These are plot devices, fun that get people embroiled in a much larger real world situation.
Yeah, and it's very effective. Like
Thanks, man.
I was on, the edge of my seat reading this thing because I wanted to know what the hell was going to happen to Rainbow Dave, what he was up to, and you know um, the son in it. Such
Yeah,
a
Gavin.
yeah, Gavin. He's really well done with him.
Thanks,
Yeah,
man.
yeah. I'm sure you got all of that. Got most of his character from your son. It's very realistic in the way he's portrayed.
Yeah,
Um,
a lot of it. I think if you're writing about people you love in real life, in a way, if they're kind of a model for a character, then I just think you bring more empathy to it. You bring more authenticity to it. But the game of fiction is always about heightening that and finding ways. Like I mentioned, my kid is an only child, and that's part of the digital um, uh, need. I think we don't live in a neighborhood where there are other kids running around in the backyard. So I tried to think, how can I heighten this loneliness, right? I don't feel like
yeah.
my son is typically, a lonely kid, but how could the character in the book be needing to fill something because his father's deployed? So that's a big hole in his
Hmm.
life. They've moved to, because of it's a military family, they've moved to a new town. So he's a bit of an outcast and hasn't found his way to fit in, which I'll get to when we do our reading in a minute. Um, so yeah, I think you don't want to be writing verbatim about real people, but um, when they are at the heart of a character, that can really bring it to life. And then you'll get literary agents telling you, well, kids don't talk like this, and kids aren't as smart as that, and I didn't find that believable. You're like, do you have a cat or a kid?
Wow. Yeah, I understand conversations like that with agents about your fiction. All too well, I'm afraid. Um, so let's segue from that into, my favorite topic, the occult aspect that kind of so slowly just sort of seeps into it, and it's very very interesting the way you did it. Like as soon as Gavin experiences that weird glitch in Minecraft early on, I, you know, I think that for me that was the big hook because I wanted to see, okay, what's going on here. And then the way you worked in just the this shadow organization, this uh this entity, so to speak, for lack of a better word. That's not a spoiler. um
Well, they're supposed to be somewhat elusive, right?
yeah.
You're wondering, who are they? What's their nature?
Yeah, just I want to know, like, where, like, did you do research in the occult for that aspect, or did you completely, make it up, or
Most of that is fictional, but I do use some tie-ins to actual occult history. There's some references to Dr. John Dee, who was Queen Elizabeth's astrologer. This is a guy who
yes,
figured out the navigation necessary for Francis Drake to circumnavigate the globe. And he was for his time, a brilliant mathematician. But back then there wasn't really this divide between science and magic. So he was also interested in trying to contact angels, and He was a very long story. You can read about him on Wikipedia. But I have a lot of books on the shelves behind me about these kinds of characters. Aleister Crowley then picks up some of the work, the angelic language that John Dee transcribed, that he believes angels communicated to him through a crystal. Centuries later, other occultists are still working with that system and trying to get in contact with what they consider discarnate intelligences that want to have some influence, possibly an apocalyptic influence. In this case, the god of chaos, Karanzan, is the very volatile force that some of the agents who are affecting things in the book want to bring into our world. So for me, the thing that was fun was having something as metaphorical as that, coming into contact with current political events and social events, the digital chaos of the QAnon era. And while I was writing the book, I thought, well, man, the stuff that I'm writing about, the gamer culture and the YouTube culture, social media, these are things that have a shelf life in fiction. It's going to change, it's going to evolve, and this will be a dated book eventually. So I felt this pressure to really race to get the story out there, but I wanted the story to be the best I could make it, which I'm always tinkering and tinkering. if there's no publisher throwing a deadline at me, years were passing. And yet I saw that the news was coming closer to the realm of the book, with things like digital conspiracy theories that have this sort of religious flavor to them, people looking for patterns and things, and online networks of domestic terrorism, this sort of open source terrorism, right?
Yep.
So by the time I was ready to publish the book, I realized that the God of Chaos was certainly having a hand in our world these past couple of years, which made it feel still timely to me.
Yeah, I think the whole YouTube streamer culture thing, I don't think you have to worry about that going away anytime soon.
Not too soon.
There's too much money in it.
Right.
So,
there you go.
Your book's going to be timely for quite a while, I think.
Thanks, man. Should we get to reading? I'm just kind of I'm wondering how much of their work night people can spend with us. Not to cut your interview short. But we didn't really talk about length for the, or maybe we did. I think we said we were going to interview each other for like 20 minutes, and I think we're going on 45.
Yeah, but
right
I did
now.
most of the talking. Let me ask a couple more questions. Okay?
Sure. Okay.
Let me fucking
I don't mean to rush. I don't mean to rush you, man.
So, I wrote down a question. You mentioned that there were a lot of changes. Like, how many drafts? Any substantial changes from the what was published?
Yes and no. It's a weird one for me. This book, it went through a kind of strange process. There was, I don't know, when I wrote my first novel, I didn't know what I was doing, like most people with a first book. I probably spent 10 years, kind of tinkering with it a little bit at a time. You put it away, you come back to it. So that took me the longest. And then I kind of figured out how to write a book. And, Neil Gaiman says, you never really learn how to write a book. You learn how to write that book. And then you have to learn again how to write the next book based on its own, whatever its needs are, right, to tell that story. But I felt like I had a rhythm, and I kind of, was getting more efficient. But then this came along, and because of the question of timeliness and my sense that it might reach a mainstream audience, knock on wood, you always hope, maybe if you're not doing something particularly weird, which I've done, I felt like this one maybe was only a bit weird, and maybe had more of a finger on the pulse. So I wanted to try to find allies who could help me bring it to a larger audience. So I spent a few years gathering feedback from agents and editors and mentors, colleagues, really, trying to beat it into shape. And, think of it as like, I do some martial arts, and you go to the dojo to have your friends beat you up so that you're able to handle it if, you get beat up in the world. So before you bring a book to readers, in the larger world, you ask your friends to beat it up a bit, throw it around on the mat and show me what its weaknesses are. And you can kind of go crazy doing that because you'll get one person telling you
Mm,
it needs this and somebody else telling you it needs the opposite. Professionals who might be able to help you, you try to give their opinions a little more weight. I didn't want to compromise certain things about what I knew this story was for me, what I envisioned, it being from the start. But there were things that I thought, I'm open to changing. So it went through some changes that actually I think made it worse. And I had added some stuff at the beginning that really kind of hurt the thriller pace of it in the interest of trying to do some character development that would make Jessica, my protagonist, more likable, which I think slowed the book down. And then I went back to talking to some of my writer friends. Oh, why can't I sell this thing? Will you look at it? And right before you read the final, my friend Philip Fracassi, another author,
great guy.
great writer,
Great
great guy,
author too.
he did me the favor of really, critiquing the hell out of it. And it was mostly just like, you can cut this, you can cut this, you can cut this, like, why do you need this? This is, you're slowing down again. This is a thriller. It's supposed to move, like, let it fly. Just throw the weight overboard and let it fly. Which I did. I ended up cutting like 15,000 words out of
Wow.
the final draft and then sent it to you. And you gave me the confidence that it moved again. And I'd gotten back to, I think, closer to my original vision for it. So I think it benefited from some of the feedback along the way. There's some things that are definitely deeper and richer regarding the characters and their emotional lives, but I think that only happens in the right places now. Hopefully, nothing's ever perfect. But yeah, long road on this one.
Yeah, and that's we kind of talked, the other night, so I already kind of knew some of that answer. Uh, so that's going to allow me to segue into my last question. So, uh, self-published, correct?
Yes, this one is.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about that? Like, what were your, I mean, obviously, I gathered from the constant back and forth with agents and them telling you that, certain things don't work or this isn't right for the market or something like that. Uh, is that initially what led you to down the road of self-publishing, or were there other factors in there as well?
Um, Ultimately, well, I've been experimenting with self-publishing a little bit for the past couple of years. My first 5 books were with a small press, Journal Stone, and I don't think I could have effectively self-published at the beginning of my career. I think I learned a lot from working with publishers about how the process, you know, works and how, what things um, don't work sometimes. I think I needed the experience of having allies, having partners, having professionals to get the hang of publishing, which is different from getting the hang of writing to some extent. But then I started just experimenting because I had seen some people were really reaching a big audience and having some success and a lot of full creative control in the self-publishing world. It has come a long way. And a lot of people were sharing information. It's an open source kind of community where they say the rising tide lifts all boats. So people are trying to really share what works in trying to help your books find an audience. And so I experimented with that with a novella called Smoke and Dagger a few years ago, which was tied into my Spectrophiles trilogy of Lovecraftian
Yeah.
novels. And that was a niche book to begin with because it was related to my own series and it was related to Lovecraft. But I learned a lot from that. And then I reissued a book that I got the rights back on, Steel Breeze, my second novel. A reissue is a different game, but I designed the cover on that one as well. And I think I even have a copy of that here. Yeah. So this is my reissue. This is the hardcover.
Very nice.
For Steel Breeze, which gave me some experience again with that process of designing a book. So I felt like I was ready for a full-length new novel as a self-publishing venture. This is my first time trying that. Please help me not fail. Buy my book. But the reason ultimately was that, again, I felt the clock was ticking on this particular story. It's a story that I felt like was of the moment. And when I saw that maybe Trump was going to lose the election, I thought, well, shit, I better get the book out fast. Not, oh shit, he's going to lose. Please, please, fucking lose. Was my feeling back, in the summer. Of course, anybody who follows me on social media knows this, but I thought this book will resonate in a different way if people feel like we are still living in this moment of chaos and upheaval and of malign digital influences that might be Russian or might be, who knows, right? It might be secret groups with secret agendas. So when COVID happened and the big New York editors that I had been, emailing with, who said they would look at my book, were suddenly MIA, and the agents were MIA. I said, well, it's been a couple of years, and if this story is ever going to be out there, I'm going to have to do it myself. And now is the time to share it, or not at all. That's why.
Okay. Awesome. I think you picked a perfect time for it. And like I said before, I don't think its timeliness is going to end for quite a while.
Sadly.
Sadly. Because, people be fucking crazy. So you want to read
material?
Now? Yeah.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do it.
Have at it.
I'm going first? Okay.
Yeah, you're going first. Sorry. I mean, unless you don't want to.
After all that talking.
If you need a break, I don't mind. I can go.
Okay. I have two short scenes, right? 2 short chapters.
Okay.
I could do one and you could, I don't know if were you going to read one continuous piece or?
Yeah. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. About 6 pages in this book, so it shouldn't take me very long. Maybe like 10, 15 minutes.
Okay. How do you feel about I do one short thing, then you do your thing, and then I do another short thing?
That's fine.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to read from chapter 1. I'm going to read the entirety of chapter 1, which is very short. So you don't need any introduction. Jessica's first thought is that she's alone in the bed. Her second is that the washing machine is banging against the wall on spin cycle, but that can't be right. She didn't put a load of laundry on before bed. So what's that thudding? She tosses the rumpled sheet aside and props herself up, blinking as the vacancy hits her with double force. Even in sleep, she knows Matt is deployed, but where's Gavin? She's been letting him sleep in her bed this week because of his nightmares. Did he wake and return to his own? She gets up, swaying a little on unsteady feet, her skin prickling in the air-conditioned room. Maybe he was cold, but he likes the AC, begs for her to turn it on even when they don't need it. He's more likely to just burrow into his threadbare security blanket, the one Matt brought home from his first tour in Afghanistan, than to leave the room if it gets too chilly in the night. The blanket is missing too, suggesting he's not in the bathroom. Jessica listens anyway for a flush or the sound of water running in the pipes. The thudding that woke her has ceased, but she's sure it was really there, not merely the remnant of a dream following her into the waking world, like a mosquito slipping into the house on her carbon trail before she can shut the screen door behind her. Real, but not the washer. So what was it? Now she's awake, and maybe the goose flesh on her arms isn't entirely from the temperature of the room. She opens the bedroom door, letting the cold air out, and prompting Cooper, their elderly corgi, to perk up on his plush bed and utter a half-hearted growl. The dog's hearing isn't what it used to be, but the fact that Jessica is suddenly up and wafting stress pheromones is enough to make him take it on faith that something's wrong. He used to put on more of a show over nocturnal noises when the man of the house was away, but lately he's been slacking, leading Jessica to wonder if it's because the dog senses that she's become the pack leader. Right now, though, with that frost of dread blooming under her skin, she feels like anything but. The thudding in the wall starts back up, and she breaks into a run, down the hall to Gavin's room, Cooper barking at her heels. She finds the bedroom door open, just a crack, revealing a wedge of darkness beyond the reach of the hallway nightlight. She almost pauses at the threshold, the notion flitting through her racing mind that she should knock before entering. But he's only 10. Too young for privacy. And then she's through the door into the darkened room, and what she finds there stops her in her tracks. Gavin sits on the bed, his back to the wall, the security blanket draped over his head, reminding her of a Halloween sheet ghost without the eye holes. His inscrutable face glowing through the finger-worn fabric, lit from below by the tablet resting in his lap. His body jerks with convulsions, the back of his head rapping against the wall, the mattress bouncing on its springs. Jessica's breath hitches in her chest. Cooper barks a sharp sound that snaps her back into action. And then she's on the bed, tugging the blanket off her son, afraid she'll find him bleeding from his nostrils or his ears or, God forbid, his eyes, as if the radiation from the device in his lap could fry them in their sockets. An insane notion, but it comes to her readily this deep in the night, so close to her own troubled dreams. The boy shudders in her arms as she untangles him, his forehead knocking against her temple. Is he dreaming? Thrashing like a dog running in his sleep? With arms under his shoulders and knees, she drags him away from the wall, the same way she moves him when he falls asleep in the middle of her bed during story time. Only now it's not the dead weight of a sleeping boy, but a kicking thing that barely resembles him, fingers hooked into claws and eyes rolled back into his skull. She can see the whites in the murky dark by the faint glow of a street lamp filtered through the curtains. She should have switched the light on when she entered, but now she's afraid to let go of him. Something knocks against the floor, the iPad tumbling out of the tangled blanket. An icy shimmer plays over the ceiling for a second. She catches a glimpse of black feathers tumbling across the glass before the magnetic case slaps shut with the familiar click. Jessica realizes she's trying to hug the tremors out of Gavin. A futile effort. She needs to stop and think, get a grip, or she'll do the wrong thing. So far, all she's accomplished is to stop him banging his head against the wall. The terror of helplessness, of not knowing what to do next, is closing in, making it hard to breathe, and she curses Matt for being half a world away. She lets go of the thrashing body and turns away from the bed, grazing something with her elbow as she rises and knocking the lamp from Gavin's nightstand. She paws at the wall. Shit. Her fingers catch on the switch, and the lamp comes to life on the floor, lighting the room from the wrong angle and splaying the silhouette of a plush penguin across the ceiling, the beak looming above them like the blade of a scythe. Gavin writhes on the bed in his pajama pants, chest bare, lips blue, drool glistening on his chin in the stark light. From his throat, a long guttural sound escapes. Goranzan. She tilts his head back and probes the airway for an obstruction, flattening his curling tongue. The airway is clear, but she runs her hand over the sheet anyway, feeling for crumbs or clues to anything he might have swallowed. There's nothing. He doesn't snack in bed, and the years when he might have swallowed the sort of random toy part the labels are always warning about are far behind them. Not choking. So what is this? Something she won't understand until a coroner finds it? She pushes that bright red possibility back down where it came from. Her fingers twined in his hair are tingling now, and she realizes she's not breathing enough either. God damn it, Matt. Her husband would know how to handle a seizure. Is that what this is? Gavin's never had one before. She needs to call 911, but she's afraid of leaving his side to grab her phone from the charging station on her nightstand. Breathe, she tells herself. Panic will not help him. She listens to that assertive voice, her daytime voice, the voice of her stronger self who knows how to handle a crisis, even if she doesn't know what to do for a seizure. You need to make a dash for the phone. She starts to relax her embrace and almost can't do it. Considers carrying him down the hall in her arms, bringing him with her to the phone, but that's ludicrous. He's too heavy. But as she releases him, she realizes the convulsions have ceased. He's breathing again, blinking and smacking his lips. She can see his irises as she wipes the sweaty hair from his pale brow and feels the tickle of his eyelashes fluttering against the heel of her hand. Baby, are you okay? Are you all right? Say something, Gavin. Gavin's eyes track to the side, following his roving hand over the tangle of bedding, searching for his security blanket. His probing fingers grow more agitated, and for a moment, Jessica is afraid another seizure is coming on, or that the first one never ended, but just got stuck for a second, like a glitchy video. Then she realizes what he's groping for, and for reasons she doesn't yet understand, the knowledge chills her. Where is it, Mama? Where's the iPad? Chapter 1.
Me. Sorry, I have myself muted.
Thanks,
Well
Ben.
done.
Thank you. I might skip the other scene. I think that was probably comparable to what you've selected.
Oh, man. You promised 2 scenes. I want 2 scenes. How
People
this
might
works.
have questions for us. They got to go to bed.
You're in my world, Doug.
That's true. You set this up. You could be one of these, psychotic YouTubers. You have the tech skills, man. You're very savvy.
Well. Yeah, but I'm kind of lazy. So yeah, that last line, Laurel Hightower just said, "Ack," that last line, and she's right.
Thanks, Laurel.
So, I'm reading from A Life Transparent. This is maybe about a third of the way into the book. The setup here is that the main character, Donovan Candle, has been instructed to meet a man named Mr. Guffin, to hopefully take him to find where his wife is, because she's been abducted. So, Mr. Guffin, are you going to tell me what this is about? I mean, really? You know what it's about. Donovan braked at a red light and looked at his captor. I know what's happening to me, but I don't understand it. Trust me, Candleman. You don't want to. You understand it? I understand you need to shut your fucking mouth. Guffin took hold of the handgun. This is about what he wants, and I should know. I've seen others play his games. This is my turn. We're all his puppets. He makes the rules, and we move when he says to. We? Guffin ignored him. The light turned green, and they sped through the intersection. The garage at the corner of 8th and Dwyer covered more than half a city block, like a concrete fortress. Donovan guided the sedan through the entrance and pulled a ticket from the gate. The crossbar rose, and he tapped the gas. Top floor, Candleman. They ascended slowly. Guffin didn't object to their speed. Donovan took the opportunity to scout the surrounding levels and hope that someone, anyone, might be parked there for the evening, but the garage was empty except for a few cars on the lower levels. He parked alongside the edge of the roof overlooking the entrance. When Donovan shut off the engine, Guffin raised the gun and shook his head. Leave the keys. Donovan slowly raised his hands. Okay, no keys. Get out, Candleman. Donovan did as he was told, fighting to stop himself from shaking, but his body refused to obey. Outside, clouds rolled overhead and thunder clapped in the distance. From this height, he saw the twinkling lights of the lower city, as well as some of the taller skyscrapers. Across the street, the courthouse shone bright with orange halogen lights, illuminating the statue in the courtyard. Donovan cracked a smile, remembering a time when he and some college friends toilet papered the old statue while Donna and the rest of their girlfriends watched with feigned amusement. That memory stirred the chunk of ice in Donovan's gut, and he turned to face Guffin. Where is she? She's not here. Where is she? Donovan took a step around the car. Guffin raised the gun. You stay right there, Candleman. Hands on your head. Donovan hesitated and did as he was told. A cold breeze swept over them. Lightning flashed, followed closely by a crash of thunder. A few drops of rain pelted his head and hands. What are you getting out of this? He saw the man's trembling hands in the glow of the garage lights. Frowning, Guffin approached him with terror in his wide eyes. Droplets of rain pattered and rolled off his coat. Donovan glanced at his feet, measuring the space between himself and his captor. 2 steps, maybe 3. His heart thudded a cacophonous rhythm in his ribcage. Was he really going to do this? Could he? He thought of Donna tied up somewhere at the mercy of a lunatic and decided he would damn well try. Answer my question, Guffin. A permanent free pass. He lets me out of his hell. I do this, and he'll let me go. That's the plan. That's our agreement. I bring you here, he takes you, and I stay. God damn it, that's how it's supposed to go. Where are you, Dullington? Guffin trembled as he screeched into the wind. He lowered the weapon, and Donovan made his move. His hands took on a life of their own, moving against his better judgment, and they connected with the muzzle. Startled, Guffin jerked his hand away, but lost his grip. The gun hit the ground and skidded across the pavement. Donovan met the eyes of his adversary. In that moment, he saw only Donna, her hands bound, a bag over her head. He saw the lifeless eyes of Mr. Precious Paws, their family cat. Quick note, something bad happened to the cat. Get him, Hoss. He charged forward and tackled George Guffin. The collision sent both sprawling to the ground. Donovan's hands found their way to Guffin's throat. You bastard, you... Donovan squeezed as hard as he could, concentrating the pressure of his fingers into the tender flesh of Guffin's neck. He was so intent on crushing the man's trachea that he didn't see Guffin's fist until it was too late. Colored lights exploded before Donovan's eyes, followed by a searing white pain across his jaw. The force flung him back onto the cold concrete. He tried shaking off the splotches of purple and black. Guffin climbed to his feet. He hacked and coughed, rubbing at his throat. You motherfucking asshole. He stumbled, regained his footing, and planted a swift kick into Donovan's ribs. The blow cleared all the misshapen forms from Donovan's eyes, and he managed to catch Guffin's foot before a second kick. He sank his teeth into Guffin's ankle, biting down as hard and fast as he could, tearing through the man's flesh and stopping only when he reached bone. The coppery taste of blood filled his mouth, but he dared not stop. This is for Donna, he thought, and bit down even harder. Guffin screamed into the night. He fell backward, kicking his foot free of Donovan's mouth. Donovan realized he held a piece of Guffin's flesh between his teeth. He spat out the chunk and retched. Guffin cried in agony as he scrambled to put pressure on the wound. Lightning split the sky, followed by another heavy crash of thunder. Sheets of rain fell upon them, limiting visibility, but Donovan found what he was looking for in the pale light. The gun lay just beside the car's rear tire. He crawled across the pavement to claim it, braced himself against the back of the car, and watched Guffin writhe in pain. You bit me. You kidnapped my wife. Donovan climbed to his feet, wincing from the sharp pain stabbing into his ribs, and approached his wife's assailant. He leveled the gun to Guffin's head. Start talking, Mr. Guffin. Blood gushed from the wound in the man's ankle, forming a dark pool around his leg. Watching the pitiful man struggling in pain, Donovan realized Guffin was far smaller than he thought. Buried within the hulk of the coat and draped in the remains of a suit was a small-framed man suffering from starvation. Guffin spat at his feet. Fuck you, Candleman. Donovan squeezed the trigger. The recoil sent the bullet off course, barely missing Guffin's head. The shot startled Donovan so badly that he dropped the gun. It clattered on the pavement at his feet. He played me, Guffin groaned. He'll play you too. Dullington's sadistic. He's using us. Feeding on us. Feeding on us. Donovan shivered. There are others like you and me. He lets us out sometimes. Only lets people see us when he wants them to. Some forget about us and others don't. We're just his pup. Guffin's eyes widened. He screamed. Oh God, please no, not now. At first, Donovan did not understand what was happening, or to whom Guffin was speaking. The hiss of rain grew muffled, and when he blinked, he found himself amid the gray sight. Sensations of rain and damp air were displaced by an unsettling emptiness. The sprawling cityscape beyond was but a lifeless outline on the horizon. Donovan blinked a second time, and the gray sight remained. He looked down just in time to watch his body flicker and solidify. George Guffin moaned. Donovan looked up and saw the man flickering as well. The pool of blood around his ankle now appeared as a black puddle. No, please, no. Please, please, what did I do wrong? A mournful sob erupted from behind them. Donovan turned and watched in frightened awe as one of the albino figures approached. His whole body went cold. The world was soundless but for his heart, pounding with a fury all its own. Not the yawning! Alistair, please! As the albino thing neared, Donovan realized just how large the creature was. 7, maybe 8 feet tall. Its hulking arms reached the ground, dragging lazily behind as it took one determined step after another. The lanky thing paused, regarding Donovan with its empty eyes, then uttered a deep sound that could only be described as a lazy yawn. Guffin beckoned to Donovan. Help me! Candleman, I'm sorry, just help me! The yawning stood over Guffin and leered, swaying on spindly legs. Its mouth shivered and twitched. Donovan watched, helpless, frozen in place by his terror. The yawning's mouth opened wide, forming a gaping maw that appeared bottomless. And still its mouth opened, stretching until its jaw touched the ground. Guffin screamed, No! Alistair, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry! The otherwise sluggish creature moved with sudden agility, engulfing the screeching man into its blackened hole of a mouth. A sickening crunch of bone issued from the monster as its jaws closed. Donovan gasped, felt his stomach lurch. The albino thing turned and faced him. A ring of scarlet circled its thin lips. George Guffin was no more, and now there was only Donovan and the yawning. That's it. Thank you.
Very cool, man. That is a great example of kind of action blended with creepy supernatural existential horror that this book is all about.
Thanks, man. So you want to read your last section?
Maybe we should just leave it as one each.
Okay.
I think, it's a nice balance that way.
All right.
I thought you might be reading a longer thing, so I thought, oh, my thing's too short, but no, they fit well together. Okay. We're good.
All right. Well, then we'll open it up to ladies and gentlemen in the audience who are watching. Thank you, Mary. Mary Hart says, good God, that was great.
Hey, Mary.
Oh, not the cat. That poor cat. I got a lot of shit for the cat.
I bet you did. Yeah. Don't you know the cardinal rule? You can do anything to humans in entertainment. You touch an animal and you will be crucified.
First novel.
Mm-hmm. Learned the hard way.
Yep. So if anyone has any questions for us, please type them in the chat and we'll do our best to answer them. It's about 8:45. We'll take questions for about 15 minutes.
Perfect.
Make it an hour-and-a-half stream. Okay.
Assuming we get any.
Well, Mary has a question. What are you both working on now? You first.
Okay. I can't really talk about my current project yet, so I'm in a bit of a bind. But I will say, maybe people who follow my Facebook feed heard this bit of news already, but I was psyched to sell a story a couple days ago for an anthology called Lost Contact, which
that's awesome.
Will be the third in the Lost series, right? Lost Films, Lost Highways, I think. So this is by Max Booth and Laurie Mitchell from Perpetual Motion Machine Press. They're doing, I think, a book of 19 stories, I think I saw. And they got over 800, like 60 submissions. So finding out that mine was one that actually made it
that's great, man.
Really made my night. So I've been working on some short stories lately, and that's one in the can.
Well, that's a good one to be in. Max invited me to submit something for that, and I just ran out of time last year,
Mm.
and I kick myself for that because it's a great series of anthologies, and it's a great concept.
Yeah,
Uh,
I loved the idea and had a story that I thought, oh, it's just in that zone, so I'll give it a shot.
I look forward to reading your story.
Thank you. It's
Uh,
dark.
I, it's dark. You say it ain't
Very
so.
dark. Very dark. But so are they. So how about you? What are you working on?
Uh, Kind of in the same boat as you. I've got some projects in the works that I can't talk about yet. Although one of them will probably be revealed in the next month or two. Uh, I've got edits back on another one that again I can't talk about that, but the editor said that it would have the audience gasping. So probably that could be a good thing or a bad thing.
Sounds like an endorsement.
Yeah.
I think it's a good
Uh,
thing
Other than that, I've
in
got
our line.
yeah, hopefully a good thing. Um, Other than that, I've got just short stories in the works. I'm hoping to have a manuscript for my next collection by the end of the year. I got a few more stories I want to write for that, and brainstorming my next novel, follow up to Devil's Creek, not a sequel, just set in the same universe.
Cool.
Uh, so that's what I've got going on. Crickets from the audience.
I can imagine how you would do more storytelling in the Devil's Creek world.
Mm,
There's a lot of possibilities there.
yeah. Uh,
The history of that place. I just think you could probably do all kinds of things.
this one, as of now, as I'm conceptualizing it, it's not going to take place anywhere near the town from Devil's Creek, but there will be ties to it. I mean, it's part of it takes place in Kentucky in coal mining country, moonshining country. That's all I'm gonna say.
Do I remember right that you grew up in Kentucky?
Yeah, yeah. The town that in Devil's Creek is a mirror image of my hometown, Corbin, Kentucky. So you'd think that there wouldn't be a whole lot to write about that place, but you start looking into the history, and you'll find it. The part you're referring to in Devil's Creek, as far as the history goes,
Mhm.
that really happened.
Damn. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
I don't want to spoil anything from the book, but uh,
yeah,
we'll have to talk about
yeah.
that.
Google it. 1919, Corbin, Kentucky.
Making
Um,
it, I'm making a note.
yeah.
Corbin.
I mean, it's a my version is a fictionalized version of events, but it is the whole concept there that happened. Uh,
Wow.
there was like a filmmaker in the late '80s made a documentary about my town. Did not portray the town in a positive light
Yeah.
for that very reason, nor should it have been.
Right.
So next question we have is from Laurel Hightower. I'm gonna do this in Kentucky accent because she's also in Kentucky. I can hear
Appropriate.
this in her voice.
Cool.
Do y'all find it hard to move between short stories and longer pieces? It's the y'all. Thank you, Laurel.
I think, yeah. I find it easier to write longer things. And sometimes I'll try to write a short story and it inevitably gets too long or longer than I hoped it might be. It's just it's a different kind of structure and a different um, set of goals I think you have when you're trying to create an effective experience on a short scale. I find it harder to do. But on the other hand, you get to have the satisfaction of completing something that is complete in a shorter time investment. So that's fun. But yeah, I don't know. I tried to write several short stories simultaneously, not that long ago, thinking, well, if I get stuck on one, I'll just switch over to another one, and pick up the thread of something that maybe is moving today. Didn't work at all for me. I think I have to have my head in one story at a time, probably,
Yeah.
because it's always in the background. I think a lot of writing happens in the shower, walking around, doing the dishes, just the processing. And what sometimes feels like writer's block is just that the processor hasn't caught up yet to help me get the next piece of a story figured out in the way that feels right.
I think that's a good way to describe writer's block. I also tried the multiple things going at once. I can't do it either. I have friends who can. I know Armand Rosamilia has like multiple books going, and he'll work on all of them throughout his day. But that's his job. He does that full time, so he's able to. I just can't. I don't know. Maybe it's like ADHD brain or something. I can't focus on. It's hard enough for me to sit down and focus on one thing. So
I was
multiple.
talking to,
What?
sorry to
No,
interrupt,
go
but
ahead.
I was talking to Jonathan Mayberry years ago in an interview, and he talked about how he will write a book in a non-linear way. He'll like outline the whole book, and then on any given day for that writing session, if he's in the mood to write chapter 14, then that's what he'll write that day. And on another day, he might write chapter 3. And I can't even imagine. Like, I have to have the linear, even if my story is non-linear, I have to tell it in the way that I imagine the reader is going to process it. I might move things around later, but it's just one of those other examples of how some writers can do that. They can just be more agile about how they process story. But for me, it's this happened, and then that happened because this happened.
Right.
Maybe you're an outliner, you can work that way. You've got a plan. I seldom do.
I've talked about my process in other interviews, so I won't go into it. But I kind of fall in between. I kind of have plotting ideas in mind initially, but then I like the organic aspect. So like certain things have to be in place, and then I'll just let's see what happens. Uh, More power to Mayberry for being able to do that. I can't do that. Um,
Superpowers.
but Laurel, back to the center of your question. I mean, moving between short stories and longer pieces, short stories are way harder. Like you, Doug, I prefer kind of like novelette length stuff. Novelette to novella, I think, is probably my favorite form. That said, short stories, when an idea is self-contained and it presents itself, it's like lightning in a bottle. It's you grab it and see where it goes. Um, Hopefully, it ends up being short. Sometimes they are. Uh, I typically like, especially with like anthologies and like open calls and invitations that have a theme or whatever. Like, I'll spend you know months thinking on it and trying to find a concept that fits, but also is something that it can be self-contained in the 3,000, 5,000 word area. It's hard. I mean, there's a lot of anthology calls I've missed because I just couldn't come up with something.
Me too.
Um, so going from one to the other, like Doug said, I mean, there's a different approach to it. Uh, I also like it because it's just I overwrite, which
Me too.
anyone who's read Devil's Creek knows that I can be verbose. Keep all your jokes to yourselves, thanks. All right, it's 5 to 9. We got time for one more question. Anybody?
I have a question.
Okay.
Todd, will you put links to our books in the comments on this video so that people
Yes.
can go and buy them and enjoy them?
So yeah, what I'll do is update the description of the video and put all that information in there.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Uh, in hindsight, I probably should have done that. Initially when I set it up.
Well, it's not like they're hard to find, really. I
Yeah, I
mean, if you're
know.
watching
Just
this video, you can probably punch them into your favorite, you know, book retailer. But
yeah.
it's
So,
convenient.
all right. Uh, well, Doug, where can we find you? Where do you live?
You don't want to come here. The wind is howling out there, man. It's not nice. It's just this ice escape of yeah, brutality out there. Uh, you can find me at Douglas Wynne, Wynne, just like on the book.com. And that's links to all my social places on there and all my books. So yeah, join my mailing list. You get a free book. You get a free prequel. Well, yeah, it's a prequel. It takes place before His Own Devices, but you don't have to read it before His Own Devices. It's called Random Access. So if you sign up for my mailing list, you'll get this free ebook right away. It's a novella. It's pretty short, but it gives you some background on mostly the guy who becomes the villain of His Own Devices, Dave. But I hear from some people that reading His Own Devices first before getting this prequel is in some ways more satisfying because it gives you new clues to what's happening that you already know about in His Own Devices. You can read them in either order. But anyway,
Okay.
there's my sales pitch.
Thank you. And
Todd, where can people find you?
Well, real quick, I was gonna say we actually got 2 more questions now.
Okay, I
From
have nowhere to go.
one from Char and one from Mary. So Char
Cool.
asks, "How about a collaboration between you two?"
I am down for that, man. I have not done a collaboration yet, and it's on my bucket list.
Okay.
I think our styles could mesh.
Yeah, it definitely could. I'm just thinking logistics of timeline and everything. Not this year.
I hear you.
This is a bad year.
I hear you. But the first thing my wife said when I told her that I sold a story the other night was, she's like, "Oh, it's already written? Oh, thank God." one less thing he has to disappear and write.
Oh, wow. That's funny. Yeah, man, I'd be down for collaborating. As long as we can, our schedules align and we can, have a gap in what we're working on.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'm going to give, this question was from Char. Is that right?
Uh-huh.
Hey, Char, you're like my favorite book reviewer. I'm going to give you a creative piece of homework. You should come up with a story prompt if you want a Keisling Wynne collaboration. Throw, I don't know, like random words at us that have to somehow inspire a horror tale. I found a little grist for the mill, helps get things.
And take it seriously. Otherwise, we're going to end up writing like Chuck Tingle stuff.
You don't want that.
You don't want that. It's not going to be pretty. Our last question: which is scarier, a clown or a book reviewer? A book reviewer, hands down.
I was just kissing up to Char, and I couldn't go there.
Sorry. Be honest.
Do you read your reviews, Todd?
I do. Even the really obnoxious, completely missed the point ones. Because I wish I could tell them apart before I read them, because the
stars sometimes help.
yeah, the stars help, but positive or even middling reviews, if they're well thought out and they actually put, they actually talk about why they don't like it, and I think I can learn from that.
Mm-hmm.
You're never gonna make everybody happy, with
Right.
what you write, nor should you try. But if it's something about the writing, especially, that bothers people, then I want to know so I can, improve. If they don't like the story for whatever reason, I don't give a fuck.
All right.
Man, questions are coming in now that we're down to the wire.
That's
last question, and this is specifically for you, Doug.
Okay.
Do you plan to revisit the Spectre universe anytime soon? Spectra?
Very possibly. Let's just say
The answer is
there.
yes, folks. It's yes.
Yeah, I can't quite say when and where and how you'll get that, but yeah, um, there's always room for more stuff tied into the Spectre books. So I do hope to revisit some of those characters this year.
Awesome. Uh, so I think that's it. That's our last question.
Cool. That was a lot of fun. Thanks everybody for tuning in and hanging out with us and staying with us.
Yes, thank you. And
Appreciate you keeping us company here.
yeah, otherwise, I mean, it would just be Doug and I looking longingly at one another on Zoom,
Having depressing,
admiring each other's hair and beard.
lamenting the state of
Yes,
our publishing careers because we're howling into the void.
indeed.
I want to
Really
really tell it.
Real quick, you can find my stuff at toddkeisling.com, all over the place, at Todd_Keisling on Twitter, at Todd Keisling on Instagram, and patreon.com/Todd Keisling. I'm all over there. So, again, echo Doug, thank you so much for joining us
Todd.
tonight.
That was a lot of fun.
Oh, no problem. Thanks, man.
How we got to.
All right, guys, we will see you later.
Good night.
Okay. It's we're not